Howdy, my name is Ben Brown. I work in the College of Food, Agriculture, and Environmental Sciences at The Ohio State University, and this is my market outlook for the week of April 17, 2020. The theme for this week's outlook is related to the strong soybean crushing reports that we've seen throughout the marketing year of 2019-2020, but especially relative to the March 2020 National Oilseed Producers Association report, or NOPA, that was released on Wednesday, April 15th for the March 2020 crush report. When we dive into that NOPA report and look at soybean crush values of their members, which represent 95% of the soybean crush in the United States, they estimated, or they reported, that they crushed 181.374 million bushels of soybeans in the month of March. Now that breaks every record that we've had. It's a little over 6 million bushels more than our previous record, which was set in January of this year. We knew it was going to be big just based on our crush margins that we had been watching, and as you can see, soybean meal futures and soybean oil futures, and subtracting out whole soybean futures, that gets us our crush margin. And we had been seeing our highest crush values and crush margins since 2018, when we saw historic crush margins and large increases in the industry. The question now becomes, can we sustain this? Will we continue to see this high of crush values and crushed soybeans that then spawns another round of infrastructure investment? And we'll talk more about that here in just a second. But when we look at our NOPA report, 181.374 million bushels came about 6 million above our January report. And to signify just how strong 2019-2020 has been, out of the 7 months that we have reports for, 4 of the months have broken new records. So we had a new record in October, and then it was followed by a new record in December, January, and now March. So a pretty strong year for soybean crush as we move through the calendar year. The question now becomes, how does that translate into USDA estimates? USDA increased soybean crush 20 million bushels in their April WASDE report. If we take that NOPA estimate, and again, it only represents 95% of the processors in the United States, and we assume a constant relationship with the other processors, that gets us to 192.5 million bushels of soybeans processed in the month of March for all processors, and that's what we assume to come out in the USDA soybean report. That would give us a 7-month total for the marketing year so far of 1.265 billion bushels of soybeans crushed. Given the USDA estimate in the April WASDE of 2.125 billion bushels, we're at 60%, just under 60% of the way there. However, we need to assume, or we need to crush 859.5 million bushels for the remainder of the year, for the remaining 5 months. That would be an average 172 million bushels per month. Only September of our current year has not reached the 172 million bushel mark. I just told you we had 181.3 million bushels in March. That's almost that's over 9 billion bushels more than what we need to average for the remainder of the year. So can we sustain this as we move forward? The other question becomes, are we still too low? Should we expect to see another increase in soybean crush sometime during the remainder of the year? Well, if we take our season average estimates that we have so far, our reports, adjust them seasonally for what we normally see each month of the year, that would imply a final marketing year average of 2.14 billion bushels of soybeans used. While that's possible, we are dealing with some infrastructure challenges or limitations as we look ahead. In years when the industry is expanding infrastructure to increase soybean crush, it increases at the tune of about 8%. In years where the industry is not increasing soybean crush, it's only increasing at 1.2%. So while we have seen some investments in infrastructure this year, it's not necessarily sure, and I'm not 100% confident that we've increased soybean crushing capacity in the United States at the 2.4% we need to reach that 2.14 billion bushels of soybean crush. So while it's possible, I don't think we'll reach that 2.140. And then I'll talk about if USDA overshot their estimate when we get into the demand issue. But if we continue with our demand, both soybean meal and oil, I think it is possible to continue to see robust soybean crush the remainder of the year. But that's a big if. That is if demand continues through the remainder of the marketing year. So let's talk a little bit about demand. I'm going to start on the export side, and then we'll move to the domestic market. On the export side, for meal, currently it's estimated at 13.45 million pounds of soybean meal to be exported. That's 104,000 tons below last year. Our total commitments for the year are down 3%, and our outstanding sales, so what we have left, what we've sold and then hasn't been shipped yet, is down 12%. So not only are we down in total commitments, but we're going to have to see a pickup in sales as we move forward in the remainder of the marketing year. When we look at where some of our biggest shifts have come from, we saw an increase in Canada and Central America, but that did not make up for what we lost in Vietnam, Europe, and Japan. Those three countries are down anywhere between 40 and 60% year over year. So when we look at soybean meal exports, one of the challenges that we're facing is strong competition out of South America, especially Argentina and Brazil. Both countries have seen their currency decline compared to the US dollar in the neighborhood of somewhere around 30 to 33% since the beginning of the marketing year. That continues to create a little bit of headwind for U.S. exports into some of these markets. Plus, with the challenges with coronavirus causing market disruptions around the globe, we continue to see challenges with soybean logistics. That was one of the reasons I think the March report that NOPA released was so strong, is that we did have some challenges in South America with their handling ability, their facilities closing down, and their ports not being able to get their meal shipped as a result of coronavirus. So that's one reason why I think the March report was as high. So I think we could potentially see a little bit softer soybean meal exports through the remainder of the marketing year, just given the fact that if the ports open up and we see trade moving along, we still do have the soft demand for soybean meal, and then U.S. competing with currencies like Argentina and Brazil they're cheaper and allow countries to buy more product at a cheaper amount, basically compared to the U.S. dollar. So let's look at soybean oil exports, and this is kind of the reverse of what we saw on the meal side. We saw extremely robust oil shipments after the first couple of weeks of the marketing year. We were a little bit slow coming out of 2018, 2019, but they picked up rapidly, and they've stayed at a robust pace throughout the remainder of the marketing year, and then elevated in the month of March. And so at 2.4 billion pounds of soybean oil exports, that's 40% over what we saw last year. We have outstanding sales at 64% year over year, so we have a lot of sales that still need to be shipped, and we hope that they're able to get shipped and we don't have transportation logistics, because that is an area of strong demand. One of the other challenges that we're seeing is that palm oil, which had come down in terms of world supply, is now cheap and being competitive globally, especially in the southeastern market. And so we have to compete now with palm oil as well. But even still, our 2019-2020 exports are 24% above what we saw last year. And I think we can continue to expect that our soybean oil exports are going to be above what we had last year. They could come down a little bit from our current estimates, though, just as we look at lost economic demand or activity globally, the reduced driving and consumption of biofuels, including biodiesel, around the globe, here in the United States and South America as well, and China and India reducing some of their demand for soybean oil as well. So I think those are challenges on the oil side. I think we still can see a year-over-year increase, a significant increase, as a matter of fact, but maybe not as strong as what USDA has currently got it. So in closing, I would just say that I think USDA's increase of 20 million bushels soybean crush in the April WASDE is justified. I think it meets the expectation of some of the strong crush that we saw throughout the marketing year, especially in the month of March. However, as we look ahead, I think there's great uncertainty in our ability to maintain that pace, especially with declining demand for soybean meal internationally, declining soybean oil from an already increased or record. So I think we will see strength there, but maybe not as strong as what it currently is. And then when we look domestically, The soybean meal is picking up some strength in some markets as we've seen a reduction in ethanol, especially ethanol production producing dried distillers grains. We have some markets where soybean meal demand is increasing due to the demand to feed animals, with the hog herd 6% over where we were a year ago, and a very large cattle on feed crop. There is demand for feed. Now the question becomes, is there access for those animals at the packing facility? And we've heard reports of packing facilities closing down or slowing down. That reduces input needed or live animals into the facility when those slow down. And so in a normal year, when you have low prices like what we've got now, and the packing plants are working as they should, you would actually see increased feed demand. But we've got a unique situation right now where the packing plants are slowing down animal consumption or animal feed consumption, and therefore, it's challenging to see what the feed outlook looks going forward. I think we will see stronger demand for soybean meal in the next couple weeks, especially again with the lack of dried distillers grains. But it would pick up substantially if we could keep the packing facilities open, and again I say if because again we don't know when we're going to get back to driving again, but if ethanol continues to remain low and production is not creating dried distillers grains, then that creates a demand for soybean meal that then gets pumped into these animals as we or fed to these animals as we move them through the packing facility. So that would be my caution, is that normally with these low prices we see higher feed values, but again we have that challenge with the input into the packing, and so that's going to slow down some of our consumption as we move forward. Overall, I think we will probably see USDA stay with their number at 2.125 million bushels of soybean crush throughout the marketing year, unless there's extreme economic disruption moving forward. And with that, I just want to end with that the farm office will be holding live office hours on Monday, April 20th at 8 o'clock p.m. You can register and get a reminder update. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you around the state of Ohio soon. Have a great day.